Hey everyone, welcome to part 18 of this Dark Urge Tactician mode guide for Baldur's Gate 3. We just finished up with the Punish the Wicked side quest with He Who Was, and now what we're going to do is to proceed on with the Halsin quest, and that will help us to reunite Thaniel and Oliver, and we're going to try to lift the Shadow Curse. So lots of good stuff in this episode, and I'm really glad that you're with me. Starting off, what we want to do is to head back to camp, because what we're going to do is to switch up our team a little bit. We're going to bring Shadowheart into our team, getting rid of Minthara for now, and that will give us a really strong position for defending the portal when Halsin is trying to retrieve Thaniel. So starting off, we're just going to run over here to Shadowheart. We're going to add her to the party, and now she will be eligible to level up. So let's go ahead and do that and see what we can do with a level 8 cleric. So starting off, you'll see that we not only get some more health and a new level 4 spell slot, Divine Strike Poison, but we also get a new feat. For this feat, I'm going to select the one known as Pole Arm Master. When attacking with a glaive, halberd, quarterstaff, or spear, you can use a bonus action to attack with the butt of your weapon. But that's not as important as the other thing it can do. You can also make an opportunity attack when a target comes within range. So we're going to be set up really nicely for whenever something runs toward us. Not only will we be able to attack it with our weapon, but we can also have Spirit Guardians active. So anything running up will take radiant damage or necrotic damage. We can have the Guardian Faith or Spiritual Weapon up as well. Spiritual Weapon is really cool as a bonus action. We can also have another ally basically join the team as well. And you can drop those things wherever you want them to be. So whether the enemy is up close or far away, you're able to hit them and you're able to do lots of damage. So Shadowheart is quite good for that. We're now going to end the day and we're going to go to bed. We're going to take a rest right now. It looks like someone wants to talk to me at camp. It's Gale. He wants to call me in for the romance scene, but we're not doing that because we are romancing Karlach instead. So you can just say that you're not interested with him if he's glowing like this. This is only Gale's mirror image. He won't be too offended by this. We don't lose him as an ally or anything like that by shutting him down. But we're just going to ignore him, and then we're going to take a long rest. So we can use supplies if you want to, if you need to get any of your spell slots or health back, anything like that. And then we're going to be good to go from here. When you take a long rest for the first time out inside the Shadow Curse lands, then you also get an inspiration point for Karlach called Outlander Sleeping in the Dark. So we just picked that one up for doing our first long rest out in the Shadow Curse lands, and now we're good to go from here. So let's go ahead and leave camp, and what we want to do is travel over to the Last Light Inn. So we can do a little bit of fast traveling here, and that will take us back to the Last Light Inn, and we can continue on with the Halsin side quest from here. As you may remember, there's a man named Art Cullagh sleeping inside the Last Light Inn. He's under some kind of curse, and we needed to get the loot from Malice Thorm in order to wake him up. So let's go do that now. When you go into the Last Light Inn, turn toward the right, go through the door, and he's going to be sleeping over in the bed in the far corner. So let's talk to him and go through this dialogue together.
Please, if you have any idea how to get through to him.
Detect thoughts. Probe his mind. This gives us a skill check looking for an 11. Because we have Shadowheart, we can use the guidance cantrip to make this a little bit easier. So let's roll it and keep going.
Thaniel.
Repeat what you heard in his mind. Thaniel.
We are living. We are dead. Two of us safe to the end.
Without a reminder of who he is, of what he held dear, his mind will remain lost to the darkness.
Investigation. Look closer at him. There may be something you missed. Here's a skill check looking for a 10. Hopefully not too difficult. Let's roll that and move on.
His fingertips sport calluses and toughened skin, as if from manual labor, or playing a stringed instrument, perhaps.
Pull out the loot you found and play a little.
Thaniel! He's still trapped there. He needs help. My loot. You got it back. How?
I killed Malus Thorm, a twisted surgeon, and took it from his corpse.
You killed a Thorm? The Ketheric's elite. How did you... Never mind. He needs us. Needs our help. I've been lost in the shadows so long. And I met a boy there too. Thaniel. He's the only reason my mind survived that emptiness, that loss. He told me about someone he knew. Someone called Halsin, a druid. Thaniel spoke of little else. Do you know him?
I know Halsin. I can bring him soon.
Please, hurry. Thaniel is more than just a boy. He's the spirit of the land. And he's all alone. Without him, the curse won't lift. He said Halsin could help. Find Halsin. Please.
After that cutscene, I do get an inspiration point for Gale called Sage Waking the Sleeper, and that also gives you 75 experience, and that also completes the quest called Wake Up Art Cullagh. The next thing that we have to do is to head back to camp so that we can talk to Halsin and tell him to come over here so that we can advance the quest line. Halsin can be in a couple different places at camp. I'll show you where I found him, but he might be at a different location on your game. Normally for me, when you get to the main part of camp, you turn left and you run all the way down to the end, but for me, he was actually a lot closer.
The shadow curse is upon us. As foul as I remember it. Perhaps even worse. But with the Oak Father's blessing, we may soon see it banished from these lands.
There's a flaming fist recuperating in Last Light. Seems he escaped from the curse, and he spoke of a boy called Thaniel.
A survivor? Sylvanus blesses us. This could be just the person we need to speak to. Thaniel is no ordinary child. He is the very spirit of this land. If this fist knows where he is, then perhaps we can save him. Save everything. I will go to see him at once. Join me when you can.
Halsin leaves camp automatically. Now we just have to follow him by choosing to leave camp, and we'll be right back where we were, and we can continue on with this quest line. So now back in the Last Light Inn, we're going to go ahead and run around, and we can talk to Halsin, who should be sitting on the bed just on the opposite side of where Art Cullagh is.
You're Halsin. Thaniel said to find you. You must help him, please.
I will, but I need to know where Thaniel is. If I venture into the Shadowfell blind, I will never find him.
I'm not sure I can put it into words. The landscape there shifts and changes.
Was there anything that could offer guidance? Something that didn't change?
Lavender. Whenever I saw Thaniel, I always smelled lavender.
I can work with that. Rest now. Meet me by the lakeshore. I have what we need to proceed, but I'll need your help. Be ready. This may prove perilous.
Now Halsin is going to walk slowly toward the next quest destination, so all you really have to do is follow him along the way. But before you actually interact with him and proceed on with the quest, we are going to pause for a moment so that we can make sure that Shadowheart is fully equipped for the fight ahead. It is quite a large fight. It only takes 5 turns, but we're going to be vastly outnumbered by a lot of enemies, so making sure that you are fully prepared is absolutely crucial because we do not want to lose this next fight. So let's follow Halsin down and around toward the north. He's going to move on down and get outside of the perimeter of the Last Light Inn, and we just have to basically follow him along the way. I like to go down left and then go down these stairs because for some reason navigating the exact path that he does doesn't work so well for me. But now we can just walk around and follow him. He's pretty easy to spot with his glowing torch. We're just going to climb up on the rocks, and then, as I said a moment ago, before interacting with him, we're going to make sure that Shadowheart is fully prepared for this fight and well equipped. Most of the equipment that we're going to put onto her is actually held by Minthara, and you can't switch out equipment with someone who is not close by. So I am going to head back to camp real quick. I probably should have done this a moment ago when we were already here, but it doesn't really matter. I'm going to open up the inventory, switch it over to Minthara, and I'm going to transfer a lot of the equipment that she has over to Shadowheart right now. We're going to take basically everything except for her armor piece, because we can't have heavy armor with Shadowheart. But the helmet, the cloak, the gloves, the boots, everything else, especially the weapons, all have to head over toward Shadowheart. So let me just jump ahead to show you what that looks like. So here you can see everything that Minthara was wearing is now equipped onto Shadowheart. We don't need that heavy armor, like I said though. You can keep her normal chain shirt on or any type of medium armor. If you really wanted to, you can take the stuff off of Karlach, but I decided just to leave that on her, and we're going to proceed on just like this. To take full advantage of that new Polearm Master feat that we got, make sure that you put on the Halberd of Vigilance. That way, not only will you do a opportunity attack whenever an enemy comes close to you, but you will also do that with an advantage. So it's a really good pairing to have that weapon with the new feat. So once we're all set, we're going to leave camp and then make sure that you're totally ready. I would definitely recommend saving the game before talking to Halsin and kicking off this next section of the quest, because as soon as we talk to him, then the next fight will begin.
You're here. Good. Now we can begin.
Let's do it.
Very well. Once I begin the ritual, a portal to the Shadowfell will open, one that will help me save Thaniel. Whatever happens, I must go alone.
What am I to do?
With the Oakfather's blessing, I can infiltrate the Shadowfell, but doing so will sap my strength. I'll need your help if I'm to return. I need you to stay here, keep the portal open until I return, and defend it at all costs.
You can count on me.
Good. Now it's important that only I pass through the portal once it opens. The magic is fragile. Any mistake, and our one chance will be lost forever. It took me years of study, of seeking the Oakfather's favor, to find a way to part the veil. Pray that this works. Oakfather, hear me. Aid me. Force open the jaws of darkness. Make passage for your vessel of light. It's ready. I'll return with Thaniel as soon as possible. Stay close to the portal. Buy me what time you can.
When Halsin goes into the portal, then the fight begins. So the first thing that you want to notice is that we are really outnumbered, but the good news is that a lot of the enemies are quite a bit weaker than what we are, so we don't have to worry too much about them. The very first thing that you should do is to play defensively by casting darkness directly onto the Shadow Crossing portal. When you do that, then none of the enemies that can make ranged attacks can target it. And then if you want to play very defensively, you can move yourself into the darkness as well. That way none of the other enemies can attack you either, so you're all completely protected while inside there. The problem being is that you're going to also be blinded, which has its own drawbacks, but it's good to be in there and then maybe pop out a little bit to make an attack and run right back into it. So that's a very defensive way of playing, and I'll show you a little bit of that and a little bit of the offensive mode. So here you can see the enemy shadows are just moving their way up closer. A lot of the enemies are melee based, which is very good for us, and when they get close to us you can see that we like to make opportunity attacks and we can completely annihilate them. Unfortunately, our poison strike isn't going to do anything to the shadows, so you don't really have to use that if you don't want to, but you can do a lot of damage just from those opportunity attacks because now we attack with advantage every time that happens. Karlach is going to be pretty amazing in this fight as well, because now that she has the Thief subclass from that rogue, now when she uses her Frenzy, she can automatically do an Enraged throw, and every turn after that she can do 2 Enraged throws as well as 2 normal throws, so she can throw 4 times every single turn after that initial frenzy turn, and that's going to really be great for us. Every time you hit the enemy with an enraged throw, they will be knocked prone. There's no saving throw to that, so they will go down, which means that they will not have very much of their stamina left to get up and run to you. It's a good way of keeping the enemies further away. I'm just going to keep attacking the enemies far away as possible with Cullagh, and then when the enemies get closer, I'll have the other party members take them out. As soon as you can control Shadowheart, make sure that you're using Spirit Guardians, and you want the Radiant version of that. Powered up to the level 4 spell, and you'll do tons of damage to the enemies around here. You can see anything that gets close to you is going to take massive damage from that and probably just kill them in one shot. And then I can just hide her in the darkness as well so that none of the range attackers can hit any of us. Unfortunately, this one did have the opportunity to attack before Gale could move, so he took a little bit of damage, but he's going to be alright. Now the other enemies are going to get closer to us, and it's Gale's turn. I honestly made a little bit of a mistake here because I ran him into the darkness before I tried to cast the spell, which means that I couldn't cast the spell that I wanted to from here. What I wanted to do is to use Wall of Fire to build a barrier in between the enemy and me, so anything that came over close to me would have to run through the fire and would hit Spirit Guardians and would be in range for Shadowheart to hit them. Basically, they would instantly be killed as soon as they got close to me. Unfortunately, I just couldn't quite get myself out of the darkness and I couldn't cast the Wall of Fire, but essentially what you do is just to draw a line straight across the front here, so anything getting close to you would die. So if you want to play super defensively, that is how you do it, and it's basically free at that point. The enemy can't touch you the whole time. They'll get close to you, and they will die. So all the enemies here are running closer. They can't do anything. They can't attack us at range. We're totally protected at this point. Okay, now we're entering round 2 of combat. There are now 4 turns remaining as we seek to defend the portal, and there are a lot more enemies that join the fight. Luckily, a lot of them are very weak. A lot of those ravens only have 1 HP. They're more of a nuisance, and the other enemies may have 2 HP. So basically, if they get close to Shadowheart with those Spirit Guardians, they will instantly die. You don't need to worry about them at all. I'm now going to switch from defensive mode over to offensive mode to show you what that looks like. I'm going to take the Dark Urge, who is a drow, and I'm going to have him cast Fairy Fire into the midst of all of these enemies. That's one of the abilities that he has based on his race, and that will give us an advantage whenever we're attacking anything within this Fairy Fire area. So everything here is revealed. There's no more of the hidden enemies or anything like that. We're all good, and now we can make a ranged attack against something around here. We attack with advantage against them, and then we're going to do lots of damage to the enemy. And we're now not protected anymore with the shadows on the ground. We broke our darkness because that was a concentration spell. Unfortunately, that means that the enemy can, in fact, hit us with a ranged attack and will attack the portal. It's a little bit riskier, but you're able to get through killing the enemy a lot quicker this way. So you really have to see, do you want to attack and kill the enemy quickly, or be very safe and defensive and let the enemy come to you? Either way is totally fine. It's up to you. I just like to do the offensive version. And we're just going to keep attacking the enemy now with Cullagh. We'll be throwing the daggers and everything that we have around the fight. I will, always recommend trying to get rid of the further enemies with Cullagh, just because she has amazing range and can keep knocking down those ranged attackers far away, and that will kind of screw up their plans for doing a lot of damage to me. But you also do want to make sure that you're taking out the enemies close by, because you don't want a bunch of guys running up and start attacking that portal. Let's keep it going with Cullagh. We'll just keep throwing stuff around. I try not to straight up kill things with Cullagh. I try to weaken them so that when it's Shadowheart's turn, if the enemy is close by, I can just run her forward a little bit, and then it will instantly kill them with those Spirit Guardians. Then I just want to keep her toward the top of this area. I don't want to have her run too far and overextend, because as more waves of enemies come in, I want her to be nice and situated so that they have to run to me and can't run around me. Now for this turn, I'm going to cast Guardian of Faith. This does a lot of damage to enemies, and it only requires a spell slot without concentration, so we won't break our Spirit Guardians when the Guardian of Faith shows up. And now anything that runs around that will take some damage. And we can also use Spiritual Weapon. This requires a bonus action and a spell slot. We can choose any one of the weapons that we want to, and we're going to plop that down in the battlefield right amongst all the enemies as well, and that will give us another ally to do some fighting for us, so the enemy can either focus on those new things we just summoned and try to attack them and do some damage, or ignore them, potentially provoking an attack of opportunity and getting close to Shadowheart and all of her Spirit Guardians. So we're in a really good position. Unfortunately, you can see the portal did take a little damage there, but that's totally okay. We're not worried about that portal at all because these enemies will all be dead before long. There you saw the power of that Guardian of Faith, taking out the Shadow Creeper with just one attack as a retaliation. We don't have to worry about that thing anymore. And unfortunately, with that Guardian of Faith, it has 60 HP and it does 20 damage to itself when it attacks. So really, you're only getting 3 attacks off, but that should be enough to do lots of damage to the enemy. I'm now going to have Gale cast Fireball down here. It is a very big AoE attack that can do lots of damage to a big group of enemies. So he just straight up murdered a couple things and weakened the rest of them. And that's really good if we want to have Karlach start throwing stuff out there, maybe pick up a kill or just weaken them for the next Fireball or the Spirit Guardians. So either way, it doesn't really matter. We're getting lots of kills on this turn between our Spirit Guardians and our Guardian of Faith. More enemies will come rushing down toward us, but we're not worried about them either. Now a bunch of ravens will come in. They're all going to fly straight over toward our Spirit Guardians, and they're all going to be eliminated very quickly because they have so little health that they're guaranteed to be killed. And then more and more enemies will keep rushing toward us. The Guardian of Faith does eliminate itself, unfortunately, but it got 3 good attacks off and it did lots of damage to the enemy. So very happy with all that. The next round that starts gets a lot of Githyanki enemies coming toward us. These guys are a little bit stronger, but I'm still not worried about them at all. We can now attack at a range here using our Dark Urge character, doing about half the health to that enemy just with the basic attacks. And then we're going to have Karlach use her turn to keep throwing weapons around the battlefield, just weakening things as we go and getting them nice and softened up so that when they get close to us, we can take them out no problem. So just choose targets around the battlefield that maybe haven't been damaged yet. That way you can soften them up when they get close to Shadowheart, they can be killed. But if the enemy is a ranged attacker, then you do want to focus on them to try to eliminate them quickly so that they can't destroy the portal. Or if you can't kill them directly with Karlach, then at least they'll be weakened up so that Gale can fireball them the next turn, which will probably pick up the kill. So either weaken the melee people so when they get close, Shadowheart will kill them, or weaken the ranged ones up so that Gale can finish them off. If they are, close to dying and you want to, you can have Karlach get the kill, but it doesn't really matter. You should just be trying to weaken everything as best as possible with Karlach without directly going for the kill. Now it's Shadowheart's turn again, and what I want to do is this time just use Guiding Bolt. There are a couple weaker enemies over here. Guiding Bolt isn't going to cost me really a whole lot of anything here, so I can just use that without breaking my concentration and eliminate another enemy. Now I just have to keep her kind of nearby. I can run down here, pick up a kill real quick on one of the vines, and then it will be able to move her back up into position, and then she will be protecting the gateway to the portal once again. Here's another little bit of a mistake. I like to point these things out even though it makes me look kind of bad, but I want to be very honest with you because I'm learning things as I go along too. Don't use another one of your spiritual weapons while the other one is still intact. I thought maybe I could get 2 of them on the battlefield, but it just replaces the previous one you had. I did put one in the way of the enemy, but it just means that it's not allowed to attack this turn, whereas it would have been able to attack if I had just let the other one be. So a little bit of a mistake there, but I will be willing to accept that, and we can move on. So now I'm going to once again have Gale cast Fireball. That will do lots of damage to a big group of enemies here. I can see lots of them, and I will target the whole group, and I can do a big chunk of damage to all of them in this area. Alright, 2 enemies were straight up killed there, and the rest of them took a lot of damage. And now we just have to pass the turn on over to the enemy. Some of them will run forward and instantly be killed. Other ones will run a little bit closer and be smarter and stop just before hitting those spirit guardians. And other ones will just run from the hills, and they won't be even close enough to really worry about. But now you can see it's just going to be a matter of letting the enemy finish out their turn, and then we'll be able to take control again. There was one notably bad thing that happened on this turn, and that is when one of the shadow enemies got close enough, it was able to attack Shadowheart, and that actually broke her concentration for those spirit guardians so that she wasn't casting it anymore. It's not a huge deal. All it means is that the next turn you have to recast it, so it wastes one of your opportunities to do some damage, but it's not the worst thing in the world. Luckily, it was at the end of the enemy's turn, so it's now my turn again. I can use the Dark Urge to attack at range and just do some damage to one of the enemies over there, and then Cullagh will go on her throwing spree again, weakening the enemy and perhaps taking some of them out. And that's really all there is to this fight. It's going to be winding down over the next 2 turns. I actually was able to eliminate all the enemies before the timer ran out, so it's very possible to defeat every enemy before those 5 turns are up. You just have to have the right strategy, and that strategy is basically have Spirit Guardians activated, let everything come to you, and attack enemies at a range to soften them up before they get close. So with all that being said, I'm just going to let the rest of the fight play out, and when the battle is over, then you will have a cutscene with Halsin again, and I'll see you in a moment for that.
Lance board is set.
Bye forever, pal.
Here we come to the end of the fight. There's only 2 enemies left and they're both very weak. We're going to start by attacking this Shadow Cursed Zealot with Shadowheart's main hand attack. She has an advantage here and we can take him out no problem with a probably unnecessary critical hit. And the last enemy is a Wraith. It's only got 10 HP left. All we have to do is run down close to it and the Spirit Guardians will finish it off for us. So that ends the fight. All we have to do now is to skip through the rest of the turns and that will be the end of it all, and we get a cutscene with Halsin.
It's done. I have him. But something's wrong. Dreadfully wrong. No. It can't be.
We need to get Thaniel someplace safe.
Yes. I'll bring him back to camp. He'll be safest with us. I need to examine him. I need to understand what's wrong. It's almost like something's missing from him. Come see us when you can.
Cullagh earns an inspiration point called Outlander Grovekeeper Secret that gets her an extra 75 experience. And speaking of experience, we gained over 1200 experience by killing all of the enemies in this fight. So that's a really quick way to earn a lot of experience. And we barely lost any health in the process, you know, besides Gale, who's barely hanging on. But apart from that, all we have to do now is to go through and loot all of the enemies, pick up all the weapons that we threw. There's nothing that's very important from the enemies on the ground here, so I'm going to skip through this really quickly, and then we'll continue on after I've done my cleaning up after the fight. With all the looting done, I'm going to take a short rest just to regain a little bit of health, and then we're going to head back into the Last Light Inn. We just have to run through this little foggy wall here, and then we'll be right back inside, and that's technically a safe area. It doesn't really matter where we go at this point, but now we're back inside the Last Light Inn, and then we're going to head back to camp so that we can talk to Halsin and advance that quest a little bit more. So off to camp we go, and then we just have to find Halsin and speak to him one more time.
Thaniel is resting, but it's no easy slumber. I discovered what's wrong with him. The shadows rendered him in two when they bore him away to the Shadowfell. Half of his essence remained here, amidst the curse. What stayed behind would have been the strongest part of him. But after all these years left in the darkness, corruption must have taken hold.
Tell me how I can help.
It's both simple and not. We need to find Thaniel's missing half and make him whole again. Only the missing half may not come willingly. The curse will have sunk its tendrils deep, twisting Thaniel's essence into something else.
Any ideas on how to find this missing half?
No matter how it's been twisted by the shadows, it is still part of Thaniel's essence. It will resemble him somehow and may show signs of his power. Look for signs of life in the darkness, wildflowers where everything else is dead. The curse cannot subdue the power Thaniel bears. Not entirely.
In fact, I saw just the sort before. Not long after we first came within reach of the Shadow Curse. Fool that I am, I did not grasp their significance at the time. There is a ruin some way outside of Last Light. I caught a glimpse of fresh blooms there, but did not investigate further. I shall mark it upon your map.
All right, leave it to me.
This doesn't have to be your burden alone. Every moment counts, and I've asked much of you already without being at your side. If you want me, I'm yours. Against the curse, against the absolute. Anything. Just say the word.
Stay here for now.
I'll be ready.
After talking to Halsin, we're going to head back to the main campfire area and choose to end the day. We want to take a long rest and use supplies so that we get all of our health and all of our spell slots back. We just finished one large fight and now we have a couple more fights ahead of us, so we need to be fully prepared for that. So once we're all done rested, then we're going to head out of camp and we're going to be back in the Last Light Inn. If you open up your map, you'll see that we have a quest marker really close to us. It's called Rescue Wulbren. All we have to do is talk to Barcus Root in order to advance that quest a little bit more. So let's head back inside the Last Light Inn. Barcus is right where we left him along the left side of the Last Light Inn, close to where the Lance board game between Raphael and Mole was being played out. So when you go inside, turn toward the left and keep looping around, and then you can talk to Barcus right behind the desk.
Ah, there you are. Everyone seems to be quite aflutter. Do you know why?
Haven't you heard? I freed the people being held in Moonrise Towers.
You did? But that means... Wulbren!
Barcus will walk over to where Wulbren is, so you just have to follow him. Wulbren is going to be seated at the table amongst the other Iron Hand gnomes on the far side of the room. So let's follow Barcus over there and then go talk to Wulbren.
Mold needs us.
Guys, is anyone keeping an eye on those children from Baldur? Maybe not.
Wulbren!
I heard you might be about. How the devil did you get stuck here, Barcus?
I'm not stuck. I came to find you, of course.
Why would you do a foolish thing like that? Really, Barcus?
Unfortunately for me, you're my friend. Rescuing you from mortal peril is my right.
But you didn't rescue me, did you? I rescued myself with the aid of this helper.
It's you. I should have guessed. Thank you very much for your help finding Wulbren.
You don't belong here, Barcus. As soon as the way is clear, pack up and head to Baldur's Gate.
But... Wulbren... The rune powder... We need to discuss what you're going to...
I said go home!
You don't know what Barcus has gone through to find you.
Please, that isn't necessary.
Indeed. Neither of you has any clue what's at stake. And why should you? It's Iron Hand gnome business. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a great deal to do.
Well, there we have it. Wulbren is safe and sound. Thanks to you. I owe you a great deal. The brilliant retort, for starters. Here you are. As promised, I give you the brilliant retort. Now, I believe our business is well and truly concluded.
What will you do now, Barcus?
Well, perhaps Wulbren is right. Perhaps I ought to return to Baldur's Gate.
Why don't you join my camp once we're ready to leave these lands?
Perhaps I will. Yes. That's a nice idea. Thank you.
For completing the quest to rescue Wulbren, we get the brilliant retort, and the description looks a lot like a normal smoke powder bomb, but this actually does 12 to 21 damage twice, and it also silences the enemies that it hits, so it is like a bomb with a little something extra to it. Halsin marked the next part of the quest on our map. It's right over here toward the southeast, called Lift the Shadow Curse, Seek Thaniel's Shadow. And before we do that, we're going to get into a fight, so I would recommend saving the game. This will be one of the most difficult fights that we've had so far in the game, and it can be very lethal if you're not prepared. Before we do that, though, let's go talk to Cal and confirm that Roland is dead.
You don't need to say anything. I got Roland's message. My big brother is dead.
I'm sorry.
We're leaving. It's what he wanted. As for you, I wish we were parting under better circumstances. But thank you for helping us. I won't forget it.
Well, it is unfortunate that Roland is dead. I really would have liked to have his bonus at the end of the game because it is quite powerful. However, it does save us a really nasty fight in Act 3. So, for better or worse, Roland's dead. Couldn't save him even though I wanted to, and that's just the way that it goes sometimes. Well, now what we're going to do is head out of the Last Light Inn, heading toward the southeast. We're going to go in the direction of the quest marker, but we're going to take a little detour first to get that fight that I mentioned. So starting off, we're going to head a little bit toward the right hand side, and we're going to follow the path, just go toward the direction of the quest marker, but this is actually going toward a dead end. We'll have to take a different path to get to where the quest actually continues. When you get this perception check, slow down, because if you go around to the right side, there's actually an ambush waiting for you. So we can turn the tables on them and start to ambush the enemy. We're going to sneak around here, and then we're going to have the Dark Urge begin the fight. You can see there's some enemies along the way over toward the right side here, as well as some further back and some over on the left. We're going to start by using a sneak attack range just to begin the battle. We should still have initiative against them, but we're not going to take our next turn. Instead, we're going to have Gale come forward, and then he is going to cast Wall of Fire. This will create a barrier for the enemy, and we can also do lots of damage to enemies along the path of the Wall of Fire if they're caught in it. So we can go right across the way here, all the way to the other side, and we can burn the enemies right across here, and we can do lots of damage to all of them. So once that Wall of Fire is in place, we're going to switch characters once again, this time over to Shadowheart. Let's move forward, and then we're going to have her cast her Guardian of Faith. We're going to put that right in the middle of the enemy so that it kind of blocks the path. Anything that wants to come down to us has to get through this thing first. So now that that's in place, we're still playing defensively, and then we're going to switch on over to Cullagh, who's going to walk forward, and then she can start to throw things around. Now, because we're outside of combat, we can't use her Frenzy ability just yet, so we just have to use one of her normal throws, and we can toss a dagger over to the other side. The Shadow Curse Needle Blights have an interesting property, and that's when they die, they will explode and deal damage to things around them. So I'll attack this one in the middle, it will explode and do damage to its friends on the side, causing a chain reaction and taking out the other enemy next to it. It's the Dark Urge's turn, and I'm going to have him use his sneak attack range to attack the same enemy that he attacked before, the Shadow Curse Vine Blight, and that will kill him, and then I've already defeated 3 enemies so far, so we're off to a really good start. And then we can follow that up with just a normal offhand range attack for a little bit of extra damage. Well, now it's the enemy's turn, and as you can see, the big one in the back is really tough. It can pull you all the way over and just beat you into submission. It can entangle you. It actually has the ability to instantly kill you no matter what your health is, and that is if you are covered in digestive juices and you are entangled, it will instantly kill you. So you need to be very careful, and it's definitely a high priority target, but we're also going to take out all the little guys along the way as well, just because we don't want to get overwhelmed. You can see we're very outnumbered, but we can turn the tides very quickly on them. So what we're going to do is recast Wall of Fire, and this time we're going to drag it right through the enemies here, and we're going to create another wall that goes across. It will get rid of the first wall, but we can do lots of damage to the other enemies along the path. Unfortunately, it missed the other 2, the bigger guys, so that's a little bit unfortunate, but I did do some good damage to the dead Harpers really close to me. Now it's going to be Cullagh's turn. We'll have her go forward just a little bit, and then we can have her start to throw a couple daggers around, and then she will be able to take out those dead Harpers really close to us. Another interesting thing to note is that when you cast Wall of Fire, it's creating light, so I no longer have the too dark disadvantage when I'm attacking. So I should be able to hit them no problem. I'll once again frenzy for this fight, and now I can use my enraged throws to do some more damage to the enemy. So we're all out of our normal throws, we're going to use our enraged throw, and that should be enough to take out this dead Harper. And once he's dead, that's really all that I can do with Cullagh, so I'm going to pass it on over to Shadowheart, and I'll have her go forward. Ideally, I wanted her to be able to cast Death Ward on the Dark Urge, just in case he died, he'd come right back, but it just wasn't meant to be because I didn't have enough movement speed to get close enough to cast that. So instead, I'm going to recast Guardian of Faith, getting it closer to the enemy, putting it right in their face, so that no matter what they do, they'll have to deal with it. My placement was a little bit off because I put it right into the wall of fire. It's a little bit unfortunate because now I take fire damage, but that's okay. It's still effective at hurting the enemy, and it will be enough to take out the enemy on its next turn. The enemy teamed up to take down the Dark Urge. It's a little unfortunate that now we have to try to survive 3 of the death saving throws, but when I take out the enemy with that Guardian of Faith, it actually causes us to fail 2 of those death saving throws, and then we fail a 3rd one immediately after that, so the Dark Urge is just instantly killed from that point on. And then they pulled Gale closer, so now he's in a bad spot too, just like the Dark Urge was before. So with Cullagh now, I'm going to use an Enraged Throw to knock down the Shadow Cursed Vine Blight, and then I'm going to also knock down the large Shadow Cursed Shambling Mound using another one of my Enraged Throws. So both of them have been knocked down at this point, and then I'm going to throw 2 more of the weapons over toward the enemy on the left, and that should be enough to take him down. Once this Vine Blight is gone, then it will be Cullagh, Gale, and Shadowheart versus the Shambling Mound and 3 of the Needle Blights that are behind him. Alright, I'm going to tuck Cullagh off to the side just a little bit, and then it will be Gale's turn, and he is going to turn the tides on this fight by himself. So what we want to do is to use the skill that I learned a little while ago called Shatter. This does AoE damage, and it will be enough to take out the already weakened Needle Blight in the back, and then that will cause a chain reaction, killing the other ones. So I'll aim it to damage all 4 of the enemies, and then the chain reaction occurs, dealing more damage to the Shambling Mound. I'll go for the offhand melee, but unfortunately it missed. I still do a little reverberation to it, however. And then we're going to move Shadowheart forward so that she can continue fighting as well. We're going to get as close as we can, and then we're going to use our Spirit Guardians. We'll use the Radiant version of it, and then that will do some instant damage to him, as well as recurring damage whenever he begins his turn inside of the Spirit Guardians. I'm going to also cast the spiritual weapon of the Great Axe, and we're going to have that around just to do a little bit more damage to the enemy as well. The spiritual weapon cannot attack the same turn that it was summoned, and now the Shambling Mound will try to run away. Gale will get a critical attack on it, as well as Shadowheart, and I can also use her Divine Strike to hit it as well for some extra damage. It'll dash away, but then it will also use Digestive Sap on Shadowheart and on Gale, so they're in kind of a weird spot taking a little bit of damage, and they are also in danger of being one-hit killed, so we need to take this thing out as fast as possible. I didn't realize this at the time, but the Shambling Mound is actually immune to piercing damage, so throwing things like daggers and swords aren't going to be as effective as throwing things that do bludgeoning damage, like throwing torches at it. So throw things that are blunt weapons to deal more damage with your throws. That's why I'm not doing a whole lot with these daggers and the great swords and stuff that I'm throwing at it. Once Cullagh is done throwing everything at it, then it's going to be Gale's turn. He's going to use his Magic Missile, and as you may recall, this build will do extra lightning damage. Unfortunately, the Shambling Mound is immune to lightning damage, so that's why we're not getting the crazy big numbers here, but we can still do a decent chunk of damage to it and keep working its health down. We've got it down to just about 1/5 of its total health, so all we have to do now is to finish it off. Let's try to use the spiritual weapon to lacerate it and cause a little bit of bleeding. Unfortunately, it was a big miss, even with the advantage on this thing. Very shameful for that spiritual weapon to miss. And now, using Shadowheart, we're going to get a little bit closer, and we're going to have her use her Spirit Guardians once again, just to do a little bit of damage to it. I probably should have just used the main hand attack. I probably would have done a little bit more damage to it. But honestly, it doesn't make that much of a difference in the end. I'll use my bonus action to cast Mass Healing Word, just to do a little bit of healing to everyone, making sure that they'll survive the next round. For some reason, when it was the Shambling Mound's next turn, all it did was stand up, and that ended the turn. So I'll take it, and then we're going to finish the fight by having Cullagh throw another weapon, and that will be enough to destroy the Shambling Mound, giving us 200 experience as well as an inspiration point called Outlander Bumps in the Dark for completing 3 fights in the Underdark. Well, now we have to go and resurrect the Dark Urge. He is dead. Unfortunately, while I do have the Revivify spell on Shadowheart, I'm not actually able to cast it because I'm out of spell slots. But I do have a way of gaining spell slots back, and I'll show you how to do that now. A while ago, we collected something called the Spell Crux Amulet. When you equip it, you gain a class action called Spell Slot Restoration, allowing us every long rest to regain one of our spell slots that's missing. So let's head on over to the bonus action called Spell Slot Restoration, and we're going to choose a level 3 spell slot, and that will instantly grant us that spell slot once again. Now that we have that, we're able to cast Revivify, which is a level 3 spell, on the Dark Urge and bring him back, all without the use of a scroll of Revivify. So we'll pick him up, and then we're going to choose a different destination. He'll come back, and we'll get an inspiration point called Acolyte Fate Must Wait by reviving an ally. And as you know, we've thrown a lot of weapons around here using Karlach, so we'll grab Karlach again, and then we're going to run around the battlefield, clean everything up. The enemies don't have a lot of interesting things. The only thing would be the Ironwood Club from the Shambling Mound. It's a decent weapon, but nothing close to what we already have. So go ahead and grab that if you want to, and I'll skip ahead past collecting all the weapons, and we'll continue on. Okay, once we're done looting, we're going to go forward and climb up this iron ladder that will take us to an upper area. We can find a key on the ground, and we will just have to pick that up. That will let us instantly open up a lock on the next treasure chest over here. We have to jump over the gap, and then the treasure chest is right here. We'll open up the wooden chest to grab the Ring of Self-Immolation. It gives us the class action called Self-Immolation. Outside of some pretty niche builds that use the heat mechanic, there's not a lot of use for that Ring of Self-Immolation, so we'll just pocket it for now and sell it later on. Now we're going to continue on with the quest to lift the Shadow Curse. We're going to circle around toward the left as we get out of here. We just want to follow the left-hand path all the way around. So hug that left wall as you go around toward the northwest, eventually turning more toward the west, and keep just circling around this way. Eventually you'll get to where we need to go from this path. And up ahead a little bit, there is going to be a waypoint. It's called the Shadowed Battlefield waypoint. If you happen to be exploring earlier and got it, you could just fast travel to that location because it's right where we need to be. But at the end of this path, there's a little bit of a gap with the waypoint. We can now hop over this gap, and this is where we want to just pause for a second because we're actually going to separate the rest of the party from the Dark Urge. So right here at this waypoint, right about the time that you get that save point to automatically pop up, let's separate the Dark Urge from everyone else, and then using only the Dark Urge, we're going to run up toward the top, and when we get to the top, we'll see a little bit of a shack. Let's go inside, and a cutscene will play automatically once we're inside.
I saw it! Nobody beats me at hide and seek.
Though shrouded in shadows, the child's resemblance to Thaniel is unmistakable. This must be his dark half, warped by the curse.
Will you play with me?
In a moment, maybe. Have you seen another little boy? His name is Thaniel.
I don't know anyone called that. Don't ask me again. Now play with me.
You want to play? Fine.
All right. I'll hide, and you seek. Find me, and you win.
All right, let's begin.
Get ready, and no cheating.
Oliver will turn invisible, and then he's going to run straight toward the west. We just have to follow him that direction. He's hiding right behind the cart over here. So go forward past the perception check, and you'll find him.
You weren't supposed to find me. You weren't supposed to win.
Let's play again.
Good idea. You're smarter than some playmates I've had. They always tried to leave before I was done with them. Try to find me again, but my family will be looking for you at the same time, so don't get caught.
the game will automatically make us hide as well as turning on the turn-based mode. So what we want to do is to move forward using our cunning action dash. We want to get inside of the shack on our very first turn. So we're going to go all the way up inside of here, and then we're going to be pretty safe. Just keep going as close to this chest as you can. And then you're going to just pass the turn with everybody else, and then it will be the environment's turn as the shadows and everything move around, and Oliver will move around as well. So let's head back over to the Dark Urge, and we can see that now Oliver is over on the side. We can't talk to him just yet, so pass the turn once again, and then Oliver will move over toward the right side of the area, right where we found him originally. So let's walk right over in front of him, and then we can use our cunning action hide to stand up, and then we can just talk to him like normal.
You're good at this. Are you sure you didn't cheat? But I can't let you think me a bad sport. Here's your prize. You'll need it.
As a reward for playing hide and seek, we get a new ring, and this is called the Ring of Shadows. It allows us to cast the spell Pass Without Trace, which will raise our stealth by 10, which is very good for when we need to be sneaky. Now let's get our party back together. We are still in turn-based mode, however, so once we get the party grouped up, then we have to shut off that turn-based mode so that all the characters will run up toward us. So I'm going to move it over to Gale, and then shut off that turn-based mode, and then everyone will start running up toward the Dark Urge when I have him as my main character. So as they run up, we'll see that Oliver's walking around a little bit, and as the party is running our way, we're going to lockpick this wooden chest nearby. It does have a skill check of 10, which is pretty easy for us with all the bonuses we have, as well as that guidance cantrip from Shadowheart. So let's open that up, and then we can see inside of it there's another ring called the Ring of Mental Inhibition. When a foe fails a saving throw against one of our spells or actions, they gain mental fatigue for 2 turns. Now I want to show you one of the greatest tricks in this game, and that is how you can get infinite spell slot restoration using that Spellcrux amulet that I showed you earlier. Now normally you would have to wait until a long rest in order to be able to reuse it again, but that's actually a little bit misleading. You can see that Shadowheart is missing her level 3 and level 4 spell slots. We want to restore those as well as the ones with Gale, but I can do it without using any camp supplies whatsoever. Here you can see that Gale does have the ability to use Arcane Recovery using an Arcane Recovery charge to get our spell slots back, but that's unlimited supply and it won't last forever. So what we're going to do instead is to head on over to camp, and we're going to use a long rest, but we're not going to use any supplies for that. All you have to do is you have to use one of your partial rests, which is really just a long rest without using the supplies, and that is enough to restore the abilities of the Spellcrux amulet. So all we're going to do is to rest without using any supplies, then use the Spellcrux amulet to restore a spell slot, and then use another partial rest, and keep doing that over and over again. It does take some time, but you're able to get all of your spell slots back without using any camp supplies at all. So here I'll show you the process one more time. We'll end the day. We'll then choose to use a long rest without any supplies called the partial rest. Then we'll switch over to whatever character has that Spellcrux amulet, and then we're going to use the ability to restore one of our spell slots that is missing. You can use anything from level 1 all the way to level 6. So I'm just going to use a level 3 here, and that will give her one more, and she's pretty much done at this point. I'll only need to have her use the spell restoration 1 or 2 more times, and then I can switch the Spellcrux amulet over to Gale. He can wear it, and then he can do the same process, getting all of his spell slots back. So I'm going to skip ahead then to the end of this. It only takes about 4 or 5 minutes to restore all the spell slots that are missing for me at this point, and then we'll be able to equip Gale with some equipment before we go into the next fight. Alright, so Shadowheart's all done. All of her spell slots are complete. Let's go into our inventory. Now we're going to go over to Gale, and we're going to equip him with that Spellcrux Amulet. Do the same process with him again. Once all of Gale's spell slots are restored, then we're going to go back into our inventory, and we're going to make sure that he's equipped with the Psychic Spark to boost his magic missiles. And then we're also going to give him a new piece of armor, the Drow-studded leather armor. This doesn't provide us with any bonuses that we really need or are very helpful for Gale. It just gives a +1 to his stealth, but it does give him +2 to his armor class, which is good for making him a little bit bulkier so he can take a few more hits. So once that's all done, then we're going to go out of the inventory, and then we want to save the game before we talk to Oliver, because we're going to get into a fight right after this. But we're all fully restored on health, we're fully restored on spell slots, and we should be ready to go.
Not back to glow, are you? Nobody likes a bad winner.
Though shrouded in shadows, the child's resemblance to Thaniel is unmistakable. This must be his dark half, warped by the curse.
I still think you might have tricked me. If you did, I'll figure it out.
I know who you really are and where you really belong. You need to reunite with Thaniel.
Spoil sport. I'm not going back. I like it here. I've made a family for myself. I get to play all the time.
Like it or not, you don't belong here.
Yes, I do. You can't make me do anything. I don't want to play with you anymore.
He's scarpered. I suppose it's up to us to find him.
Oliver ran away, but there's still a giant portal for us to use to follow him. Let's get close to it, but don't use it just yet. You want to switch it over to Shadowheart, and then you can have her use her Spirit Guardians, so that as soon as we go through that portal, then it will be in a fight, and we won't have to use a turn in order for her to cast this again. So with that Spirit Guardians aura active, we're going to use the Shadow Portal to be teleported over by where Oliver is. We'll instantly be put into a fight, but that's okay because we're already set up for success here. We're going to run forward just a little bit with the Dark Urge, and I'm going to have him use his sneak attack range to attack one of the enemies around here. Now pay attention, there's this Night Dome. You really don't want to attack that because it has Cursed Vengeance. It will do damage to you when you attack it directly. So instead, you have to kill the other enemies around here. So let's just start attacking the daddy over here, and we're going to focus him down and then switch over to the mommy. But all throughout this fight, we're going to have to deal with other monsters that Oliver will spawn in. Luckily for us, they are very weak, and we can kill them instantly when they get close to us using Spirit Guardians. So now we're just going to have Karlach start attacking. We can have her use her Frenzy so that she will have Enraged Throw, and then we can still continue to toss weapons over toward that daddy. We do want to eliminate him as fast as possible. It is a little bit annoying because the mommy enemy can put us to sleep with her lullaby. That just takes one of our party members out for a little while. Amazingly, that's about all the strategy that goes into this fight. It's just taking out the other enemies, and they will all do damage to the Night Dome as they get destroyed. The bigger the enemy is, the more damage it will do. So when you take out the mommy or the daddy, it'll do 60 points of damage to the Night Dome. The other smaller enemies only do about 10 points of damage. And Oliver will just keep respawning them every turn. It just is very easy for us to put Shadowheart right into the midst of all of them so that they will run over to us and they will instantly be killed. We can also do things like summon out her Guardian of Faith just to do some additional damage. You can plop it down right next to the mommy or daddy just to do some bonus damage to them. Oliver will summon in an owlbear enemy, which is a little bit tougher. It can do some pretty big damage to you. So when that happens, just focus on the owlbear, kill that, and then move on. And that's all that I have to say about this fight, so I'm going to let it play out at this point, and I will see you at the end of it when the cutscene with Oliver begins.
Need to act fast.
time for mercy.
You want to play? Let me show you my favorite toy.
Have to keep going.
Alright, Karlach picks up the kill against that mummy, and now the Night Dome only has 50 health remaining, but there's only 4 enemies left for us to destroy, so unfortunately, I can't defeat the Night Dome this turn without attacking it myself. You can do damage directly, but you're also going to incur damage thanks to the Cursed Vengeance skill that it has. So when I throw something over to it, I take damage myself. I went all the way from 71 health down to 39, and then I'm going to do it one more time just because I can, show you again exactly how that works. So I hit it, but I take a lot of damage too. So not the best thing to do, but I just wanted to guarantee that I got it down within range to be defeated this time. So now all I have to do is use a level 1 magic missile that will give me 4 projectiles. I'll aim 1 at each of the little shadow friends over here, and when I launch it, the battle will be over.
Why couldn't you just leave me alone? Why can't I just stay here playing? I had everything I've ever wanted, right here! And you've ruined it. I'm not leaving. You can't make me.
You have what you want, but not what you need. Thaniel, he's your friend, your kin. He's you.
He's nothing to me. He left me here all this time. I had to do everything for myself. Even when it was scary, even when I was alone. I didn't give up.
You were very brave and resourceful. Think of how much you'll be able to help Thaniel.
But would he even want me back? I've changed. A lot.
Change is good. That's what growing up is all about. Together, you two will become more than you were before.
So I wouldn't have to make up friends to play with anymore. I'd have someone real. I'd like that. And he would too, I think. All right, I'll do it. I want to do it. Bye. And thank you for playing with me.
And that concludes that fight. There's still some stuff on the ground that we threw around, a lot of spears and daggers and such. So let's switch it on over to Cullagh, and then we can go collect all of this stuff. There's nothing that we need to collect from the enemies around here. They didn't leave us anything, so just pick up what you had before. With all the looting done, now we're going to fast travel over to the Moonrise Towers, and in the next part we're going to be focusing on eliminating a lot of the enemies inside the Moonrise Towers. If we can defeat them early, then they'll stay dead for when we have to come back later on at the end of Act 2, where there's a very large fight. But if they're all dead already, then we don't have to worry about them anymore. On Tactician difficulty, I would rather fight a lot of smaller enemies one by one than a huge group of them. So with that in mind, we're going to end the episode right here. Thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, please be sure to give me a like and comment down below. Also, subscribe if you haven't done so already so that you can stay up to date with the rest of this series. I'll see you soon for part 19. Until then, thanks for watching and have a good day.